Hey guys, welcome back to Oh Brother Comics, and welcome to our second episode of our creator interviews. We are graced with an amazing writer, Mr. Ryan Parrott, who has written amazing comics. Let's just go ahead and throw some of them out there. Some amazing Power Rangers, Mighty Morphin, MMPR when you took over for Kyle Higgins, Go-Go Power Rangers, Ranger Slayer, Draken, TMNT, NPR, Army of Darkness, Star Trek, Batman, Oberon, Volition, Volition, Revolution, and Dead Day. Some amazingly popular books out here. Welcome, Ryan. Thank you for coming by and spending some time with us.
That's a pleasure to be here, man. Thanks. That's a lot. When you have to go through that whole list like that, I'm like, oh boy, I have been doing this for a bit.
Yeah. And I've been following along. As you can see, I am a huge Power Ranger fan. Have been loving everything that you've been putting out with, especially what's going on in the Eltarian War right now, which has just been amazing.
Oh, awesome. I'm glad to hear it. Thank you, man.
Yeah, totally. Well, let's go ahead and let's just jump right into it, sir. How did you get into comic books?
Well, I mean, the one thing I could do when I was a kid was draw. Like I wasn't particularly good at sports and yeah. So I really wanted to be an artist. That's what I thought I was going to do. I went to art school thinking like that was going to be my thing. I was going to become a proper artist and then make a killer portfolio and go to San Diego Comic-Con and just become the Quentin Tarantino of comic books. And then I learned real quick that my art wasn't quite up to snuff and that I wasn't going to I didn't have the talent and sort of the drive to do that. And so I sort of I like the stories in comic books as much as I like the art. And so I thought I transitioned into I'll do film and TV. And so I worked on that for a little while. Excellent. But once I got into college, I ended up finding a bunch of guys who still read comics, and I got back into it in a way that I didn't expect. And so with a weird long cacophony of writing film and TV stuff, I ended up making one of my friends from college was Kyle Higgins. So we've known each other for 20 years. And I remember when he was making short films in school, and he hadn't written a book yet. So when he moved up to LA, we hung out a lot. He lived around the corner from me. So we would hang out and he would pitch me ideas for what he was trying to do. And he's breaking in comics, and he got in. And in the middle of that, I remember got his third or fourth book. The New 52 started, and he got an opportunity to do Nightwing and Deathstroke in the same week. They were like, hey man, you've only done a miniseries. You want to do 2 ongoing books? And he was like, I don't know if I can do this. And he was right in the middle of Gates of Gotham. So he called me because I was working as J.J. Abrams' assistant at the time. And I was assistant for 2 years. Yeah. So I worked for him, and they called me. He's like, hey, could you help me write this Batman comic book? Because I'm overloaded, and the story, and we work well together. So I went after work each day. I would drive over to his house, and we wrote 2 issues in like a week and a half. And then because I got that book, JJ found out about that and was like, hey, I know you write comics. You're interested in doing some Star Trek comic books. And I was like, yeah. So I ended up doing that. And then so each one sort of led to the next. And then somehow in the middle of that, I found myself writing comics and TV at the same time. So there's a weird. So my advice to anybody, if you want to work in comic books, find somebody from high school who can break in first and then hire and then bring you in.
Awesome. Yeah, that's awesome. And it's amazing. I actually went to college for art too. And
cool.
Never really followed it up, and that's how I got into tech work, just to kind of make ends meet. But it's amazing how we kind of fall away from things that we thought that we were going to do, and then see where our life kind of takes us.
Absolutely.
Oh man, that's crazy that you were under J.J. Abrams and roommates with Kyle Higgins. Man, it's the connection, such a small world.
Very small, yeah.
Awesome. Well, actually, that was my second question, because I was wondering how you actually became a comic book writer. But man, you just like you said, had a friend that got into it and got you in. But yeah, go ahead, Nick. I know you have a question for him.
Yeah, so you do such an amazing job at capturing the personalities and the quirks of each of the established characters that you've written. How do you do any kind of research before you start writing those characters that are already established in order to really portray their personalities and their quirks in your writing style?
Well, I appreciate that. It's nice to hear. I don't know if I always do that, but I'm glad people think so. I think it's just picking the books and stories that you love and grew up on. I was 14 when Power Rangers came out, so I watched that show and knew those characters pretty well. And when I've done Star Trek, I grew up watching a lot of Star Trek, and I was working when I worked at Bad Robot, I was obviously around a lot of that stuff. And then when it did Army of Darkness, it's Ash. It's not it's if you don't like Ash and you don't know that voice, it's just write the snarkiest guy you can think of. So I think half of it is just picking the books that you make sure that you pick stories that you love love and characters that you love, so that so that you can consist. I think it'd be there are certain books that I've had the opportunity to write in the past that I've not necessarily turned down, but have been like, I don't necessarily know if I'm the best guy to write this because I don't know it and love it as much as maybe other people do. And I think that's the one way you sort of avoid making some bad pitfalls. But when it comes to the one thing that I've written a lot of is sort of angsty teenagers. And so I feel like that's fun because I love teenager stories because specifically that sort of 16 and 17-year-old age group, because it's such an interesting age in the sense that like you go from having no responsibility to all this responsibility. It's the first time you're actually and also all this incredible stuff's shoved upon you. Economically, you're usually getting your first job. You're driving for the first time. You're actually having relationships, and sexuality is changing. And then at the same time, it's the first time in your life you actually have to start making decisions that will affect the rest of your life. And so like what's so great about writing, specifically Power Rangers, I think, is like you can take all of that responsibility and all that fear and frustration and confusion, and you basically make those metaphors for, fighting giant monsters. It's like the monsters are the responsibility. You can just punch them. So it's actually easier in those. So like, I feel like that's one of the reasons I really like writing those types of characters, because I feel like it's a really key age that you can sort of deal with a lot of stuff that I think everybody went through and can relate to.
Yeah, that's amazing.
But following up on that, and one of our other favorite aspects of your writing is the emotion that you poured into these characters. Taking the Altarian War and the Power Rangers, for example, every time I read it, I can just picture like Zach and Trini and Jason and Adam and Tommy and all these guys as if I was watching them as a kid. Can you give us some of the insight into the process that you use to work with and actually let me go back on that, is that amongst your writing you also have art that helps portray these characters so well. And following up on the question is, can you give us some insight into the process that you use to work with like the artist, and do you have like direct back and forth with them on how, or provide notes and detailing how you want the scenes to be fleshed out so that you can portray these characters you're writing about?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm very lucky. I know every writer says this, but it's really true. I think is that I've worked with a lot of really, really talented artists. Like, my first book with Dan Mora doing Go-Go Power Rangers. I mean, like, come on, that's an embarrassment of riches right there. It's like, hey, you want somebody who's gonna effortlessly make like Jim Lee level drawings that's mixed with like J. Scott Campbell. Like, here you go, man. Like, that's like, who gets that? But I think, as a writer, like a comic writer, I've worked with 24 artists or something like that, and everybody's different. Every single like, there's always that sort of feeling out period when you first give your scripts over to them, and they give you your layouts back, and you're like, okay, how much camera, how much do they want from me, and how much do they want to sort of give themselves? Like, for some reason, some artists are like, I'd love to know everything that you think is in this scene. Like if you say alien planet, like tell me what their clothes look like, tell me what their structure like, are they bipeds, are they not, what's the level of advancement? Like they want to know all that stuff, and they'll ask. And there's other ones you're just like, it's an alien planet, like I got it, don't worry about it, I got the rest of it. And both approaches are really cool. Sometimes you get some really incredible things you would never get. And I think that's the fun thing, is like, I get credit for a lot of the stuff that the artists do that I don't write in the script, and I'm just as exciting for me. So for me, I think it's just really, just like there's a filling out period. Most of the artists I've worked with, not all, but most of them are located overseas. So most of my interaction with them comes through the editor, so I don't have a lot of back and forth. It's more like there's sort of like an interpreter for us, and some of them you actually use interpreters. So it's a little bit of there's some translational stuff. But like for instance, for the Rogue Sun right now, I'm actually working with Abel myself. Like there isn't like, I have Michael Basuto as my editor, but I'm the one who communicates with him, and so that's actually changed the way that we write the script a little bit, because he can ask me questions in the middle of the day. Hey, did you think this guy's wearing a t-shirt or a jeans or whatever? Like, and that's stuff that I had never had that kind of level of interaction with before. So that's kind of cool. So it kind of varies from artist to artist, but usually if you find the right art, it's like finding a dance partner a little bit. If you find the right one, you both look better for it.
Yeah, we've noticed that with a lot of big writers out there. They tend to find an artist that works really well with them, like Scott Snyder and Capullo, and so on and so forth. And even like with you, you've been using Marco Renna a lot for the Power Rangers stuff.
I love Marco. Marco is one of my favorite artists to work with. Like I've told him that, like he's tired of me telling him how much I love his stuff because he is just like his style is exactly the kind of style that I like, and like the way I love one of the things he does. I think is so cool is he'll do like he thinks of it like in regards to like a director. Mm-hmm. Like if it's a scene with two people talking, his camera angles or the camera angles, sorry, but his like panel angles are very sort of subtle and simple. But then when it goes action, all of a sudden it moves around more, and it's mm-hmm. like he literally thinks of it like how can I use the different perspectives to show and give a different energy. And I think that's such a wonderful stuff. And he just has such a cool sort of Michael Turner-esque style that I just think is great. So
yeah, his art style is amazing. And yeah, talk about fight scenes, the latest issue.
Oh yeah,
really fills that in so well. And actually kind of diving into the Power Ranger stuff, if you don't mind. One thing I really love about your take on the Rangers is the creation of the Omega Rangers. And can you kind of give us a little insight on how you came up with that and using the World Peace Conference from when Jason, Zach, and Trini had left the Power Rangers from the show? Did you see that as an opportunity to really expand on that and kind of put them into the Omega Rangers position?
Yeah, I mean the idea for that character, the idea for just the Omega Rangers in general, I think came up in the middle of Shattered Grid when Kyle and I were working on it. It was sort of like, what could you do next? And whenever you're coming up and brainstorming ideas, like mm-hmm. new things come. And I remember Kyle was like, he was more in tune with some of the behind the scenes stuff that had happened with them leaving the original show that I didn't know about. And so when I heard about what happened and why they left and all that stuff, I was like, well, we got to do something to sort of like that can't be the real answer. Like, let's come up with a story answer that lets them kind of live on. Mm-hmm. And so that's where the Omega Rangers came from. This idea of sort of this sort of Task Force X kind of like secret Ranger thing. And like, as opposed to like a World Peace Conference, which isn't a real thing. So like, we were like, that's ridiculous. And I love the idea that this is like, what's the best option we have? I know, we'll do that. So that was the one part. And then when we brought Daniele in, because he was doing Power Rangers that he did in Shattered Grid, it was just like letting him take that next thing. And like, he was the one who brought in all the alchemy elements. He was the one who was like, oh, what if these are elemental? And mm-hmm. and what if we can use the symbols on the triangles and the squares and the old alchemy symbols. He brought all that in. I remember I was sending him ideas for like the different weapons, the Omega weapons. And I was like, and I pitched him all these different ideas. And he was like, no, man, they're elemental. Like the commas, those are on chains, they're like wind, and then the hammer is like and I was like, oh man, you'd thought this whole thing through. And like, so that's what I say. It's like, you find the right artist, they really can elevate, because they're so smart. They know what they draw well, they know what they like to draw, and they also think things through, because they have to. For me, I just say, hey, do this, and then they actually have to think about the logic of the mm-hmm. whole thing and stuff like that. So that's where a lot of that came from. It was very much a collaborative effort with Kyle and Daniele and me. And then also the editor, who was like, Boom was very excited about the opportunity to do something with those three Rangers, because they're so popular and we love them. So
yeah. Have you ever had the opportunity to talk to like Austin St. John or Walter about them and what they think about it?
I know Walter, and I have a quick anecdote with Austin. We were in Allentown, Pennsylvania for a convention, and I found myself sitting next to him and David Fielding, who's Zordon. Mm-hmm. And so it was like a lull in the show, and I walked over to Austin and I was like, hey man, my name's Ryan, I read the books, and I think it was right in the middle of Go-Go, and I said, do you know what I'm doing? And he's like, oh no, I heard they're good, like people bring them to me and I sign them in school. And I go, have you read any of it? And he's like, not yours, he's read Kyle's, he hadn't read mine. I was like, great. But I was like, well, and I pitched him the backstory that I gave to Jason about being a bully in little elementary school, and the reason that he went into karate or into martial arts is because he was trying to control that anger and control mm-hmm. that rage, and his relationship with his father, and how that was a big part of my Go-Go run. And Austin just stared at me as I was talking, and he was like, dude, that's so close to my real life, that's crazy. And he's like, can I read it? And I was like, and I gave him the comic and the trade, and through the whole show I watched, and he was sitting and reading it, and he came over and he's like, we should talk, man, because I got some ideas and some stuff. And so he's been really cool about, like, he's been very supportive. And I've met everybody. David Yost is amazing, who played Billy. Yep. I met Karen Ashley, who plays being able to finally get her into the story and be able to do with that. I just met Johnny. I just met Johnny, Johnny Youngbosch the other day. And he was like, and it was fun because it was like, what are you doing with my character? And I was like, I'm working on it, man. I'm trying to give you as much as I possibly can. But like, it's been really fulfilling to talk to them, because they're all very supportive. I think the fans really like the books for the most part, and so I think they like that the fans can like that their characters are still out there doing stuff and that they can interact with that. So that part's been really cool. So yeah, it's been. And I haven't got to talk to David about it yet, but I'm like, I made Dave. I like, dude, I turned Zordon into a warrior, dude. I like someone's gonna cosplay that and walk up to you someday, hopefully.
Yeah, Zordon now running around in his little robot suit is amazing, and then seeing him battle Zed is like something that I didn't know I needed as a child growing up, and it's something that touches my heart. But Nick, I'll give you the next question.
Yeah, well, speaking of Zed, how did you come up with the origin of Zed being the fallen Supreme Guardian of Eltar?
Spoilers. So that was the thing that we talked about when we finished Necessary Evil. I was like, I want to do something that focuses on Zordon, and I want to do something that focuses. I've done a lot of stuff with the Power Rangers, and I was like, let's do something with Zordon and Zed. Like, let's make the next storyline about them. And I think that's actually been, like, not to address criticism, but like that's probably the one thing that I think some fans have been a little disappointed with in the Eltarian Wars is like it feels like the Mighty Morphin Rangers have gotten a little bit of Tommy and Aisha, Tommy, Aisha, and Kimberly and all them have sort of been like pushed to the side a little bit because I wanted to tell a story about Zordon and I wanted to tell a story about Zed. But I was like, you got a lot more books. They'll get more time. It'll be fine. And so my pitch for the Eltarian War was, if we're going to go into Eltar, I want to learn about Zordon's past and I want to learn about Zed. And I remember we talked about it. We were like, his name is Zed and we don't know what he looks like. It made sense to me that, like, I've always loved the story of best friends falling out, like the Magneto, Xavier, those relationships, like those are great stories. And I was like, there was something really cool about the idea that if we had Zed be an Eltarian, what that could do and the stories and the flashbacks we could use to like really get into. I love the idea that I could pretend I was showing you a story about Zordon's past. And then when you go back and look at it, you're like, oh, it's Zed's. The whole time we've been watching this, I'm actually showing you Zed's. And then the thing that was really fun was Dan Moore did the designs for when we were trying to figure out what the Eltarian Guardians looked like. Because I was like, let's do something that's a precursor to the Power Rangers. I'll be fast. I'm going too long. I'm sorry. No. The thing that I thought was really cool was I was like, he drew Zordon really young and he drew them at the same age as Jason. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's so, because there was a time when we actually had it flipped where Zordon was the Supreme Guardian and Zed was like his apprentice. And this was really early on. And I was like, no. This is way better if we make Zed the older version. And it's the whole reason that the idea that when he falls, Zordon feels he actually has to step into that role and fulfill. Like, I thought there was something really cool, like karmically weird about the idea that like, you learned everything from this guy who goes to the dark side, basically, without doing any Star Wars metaphors, goes to the dark side, and you think he's dead. And because of that, not knowing he's become this terrible thing, you go, well, he's gone. I don't want this life, but I've got to step into his shoes and be that guy. And I thought there was, and so that ultimately when you find out that was all a lie, but that lie made you the man that you are, I thought was really cool. So like there was a lot of depth there that I thought was really fun.
Yeah, and that really like humbles Zordon even more, when he has to step up into that role. And I love that character development with him. And like you said, it is a story about Zed and his origin, but you'd really get a lot of backstory with Zordon and then Zeratus as well. That's also, behind the scenes messing with both of them and stuff.
Yeah, I'm totally stealing from Othello, but that's what I was going for. It's all Cassio, Othello, and Iago. That's my triangle. So steal from the best, right?
Right. So now I heard that you're no longer going to be writing the Mighty Morphin side of it. Is that correct? And you're going to follow the Power Rangers?
Yeah, I felt like, I've been doing it for so long and I thought like, I don't need to be the only voice on Power Rangers. Like I appreciate that people like it and it's really fun and helpful to be able to write both books. But, I think I did the math. I've done close to like 100 issues in like 3 years. And I thought, it's okay to take a step away from it. So Matt Groom, who was a writer of his own and well-respected writer in his own right, and did the Power Ranger, Ranger Danger podcast for a while. And we've known him for a while. He's stepping in and taking over that. And he's already killing me in regards to like, he's so much faster and so much more excited to do this. And I love his stuff. He's going to do a great job.
Awesome. Well, I want to say thank you for everything you put into the Power Rangers, because you and Kyle have definitely reignited the Power Ranger fandom off the bat.
It's very nice to say.
It's been such a great, fresh breath of fresh air, for the Power Ranger stuff. And we look forward to what's coming out for the Omega Rangers coming forward. And hopefully we get a little bit more of the Eltarian stuff and figuring out what's going on with them.
Oh, yeah.
Awesome. Well, let's go ahead and we'll dive into why you're here to talk about well, two things that are coming out. You've got one, your brand new character coming out called Rogue Sun,
Right.
and his first appearance is a crossover with Kyle Higgins and Matt Groom. Because I didn't even realize that Matt Groom had a character out, but it's called
Yeah.
Supermassive, and this
Yeah.
looks amazing.
Yeah. So Supermassive is like crossover with my character Rogue Sun, Radiant Black, which is Kyle's book that's been an image for a while, and then Matt had a Kickstarter graphic novel last year called Inferno Go Red, and the three of those, and we were like, when Kyle was like, you should do your own book, I was like, well, if we're gonna have him come out, we should do something big. We should. It wasn't just me, but it was the conversation was, if you're, there's so many different comic books out there. There's so much as like, if you're gonna come out, like, let's find an entry point where people can, they don't have to go read 6 issues of mine and 6 issues of Matt's and 6 issues of Kyle's, and then they get that one crossover. It's like, let's just jump in right away. Let's use it as an opportunity, because I've used this before, but it's like the way that when I was growing up reading comic books, the way that I would find out about new characters would, like, if I was reading Batman and Swamp Thing would walk in, I'd be like, who's this guy? And then I'd read about him, and then I'd go find Swamp Thing and then read Alan Moore and go, oh my gosh. And so that was something that we thought would be really fun, is like, do this in a way that's like, these are some new characters. If you like Radiant Black and you like that universe, these are characters that fit into the parameters that explore different worlds and explore in different areas of the same world. And we can all bring it, because I think that was one thing that Image was really excited about, which was, that 30 years ago, they started with superheroes. Like, that's what they were. And they've become sort of this bastion for great independent storytelling, and they've almost become like the A24 of comic book world. But like their roots are still in superheroes. And I think the idea that we could do that the next generation that grew up on those books could come in and like follow in the footsteps of those founders was something they were really excited about.
Awesome. That's amazing to hear. And I did see that it looks like Image is calling this their superhero universe, and it's basically focused around your 3 creations.
I mean, we call it the Massive Verse just because we don't want to make anybody. We want to be like, this is our stuff. I think it all exists in the same world, and if Rogue Sun lasts beyond the first 6 issues of the series, and I would love to interact with all those, like with Spawn and Savage Dragon, all that stuff. That if those guys felt I was worthy enough to be able to do that, but right now we're just playing with our characters. But we'll see what happens. I would say never say never.
You need to get Donnie Cates to put you guys into crossover right now.
Oh gosh, I thought everybody was in Aren't you guys in crossover? I think everybody.
At this point, it might as well be.
My unborn children are in crossover. Yeah.
So Supermassive is coming out, I believe, at the beginning of February 2nd, if I'm
February 16th is 16th, Supermassive,
okay.
And then Rogue Sun #1, which is sort of the spinoff of that, which follows my character, that comes out February 23rd.
Okay. And could you dive into how did you look to come up with this new character called Rogue Sun? Was it something that Kyle kind of pushed you into? Was it a story that you've been looking to start for a while?
Yeah, I mean, it was a character that I've loved for a while, that I've wanted to do for a while. It was basically the general quick pitch is, I don't think I've already pitched it. I apologize if I have. Was it's basically about a rebellious teenager who is a little bit of a Flash Thompson character. He's sort of he never had a father figure in his life, and his father left when he was 2, and then he finds out that his father passed away. But what happens is his father was a superhero named Rogue Sun, and he has left him this mantle and his powers in his stead. Is sort of and so now this kid who's never really had any opportunities in life gets to become the superhero, but he has to do, in order to become him, has to sort of learn everything he needs to learn about the father that he never had, and the guy he's hated his entire life. So it's got this weird sort of darker tense of like, what's it like to try and get the approval of somebody that you like, a son trying to get the approval of a father post after he's passed, and how hard that is. And for instance, the thing I liked about it was, most superhero books follow. There's a scene at the beginning of Rogue Sun where when you meet Dylan, he's got a kid shoved in a locker. And what I liked is most superhero books follow the story of the kid in the locker, and our story is going to follow the guy that's pushing him in. And what happens? What does it mean when you're a bad person that is sort of in a weird way forced to do good things? Can that turn you into a good person? So that was some of the things I was excited about telling.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's awesome. That sounds like a very unique take on the traditional superhero story.
Well, I think if you're going to do a superhero story now with there's thousands of, I mean, look, fans have 1,000 options out there to read. They have all the characters they already know and love, and they have new people doing new stuff. And so I feel like if you're going to do a new superhero book, you've got to approach it differently. You have to, I've got to give them something like, if you want a good superhero book, you can go read Batman, Spider-Man, or whatever. They're there. So if you're going to come read my character who's new and you don't know, I better give you something and have something to say with it. So.
Interesting. Yeah, when I first started, because thank you for giving us an insight into the first couple issues of your books. It's amazing, guys. When it comes out, you guys have to pick it up because it is so good, and I can't wait to see the interaction between yours and Kyle's Radiant Black character, because
it's a lot of fun. Yeah,
Radiant Black always seems like he's like kind of like I believe it's Randall from like Clerks.
Yeah, that's very close.
Yeah,
yes,
in a sense, him that quirky attitude, and then seeing your character now growing as a superhero. I can't wait to see the interaction between the two of them. And when you first started reading the first issue, I almost kind of felt like it was starting a lot like Radiant Black did, where it was kind of the quieter character, like you said, the kid in the locker. But when you flipped it on us, it was like, oh, this is interesting. This is a really cool idea that this kid who just wants nothing to do with his father, basically has just left him, since he was a kid, and it's just been him and his mother, he has no connections with him, is now given this gift of being a superhero kind of thing. And it seems like it wasn't hidden. It's a little different of a superhero take than like most superheroes, where like their identity is kind of hidden in a sense. It seems like people really knew who his father was.
Well, they don't know that his father was Rogue Sun, but they know who Rogue Sun in. And the thing that I wanted was like the legacy superhero at all. Like that, like there was a Rogue, like when I first pitched the idea to Abel, he was like, I was like the design, I was like, oh, it's a knight that's on fire. And he's like, and he literally drew a knight that was on fire. And I was like, that's awesome. But then I saw that and I thought, oh man, like how long was this an actual knight from like, how old is Rogue Sun? Is this guy 200 years old? Has this been passed down for generations? Is this always been in the Bells family? Was it something else? And like, I love that stuff. Like I'm a huge, like I love Matt Fraction's Iron Fist run. I've said that like several times on the things, but like, I love when I love books that go, this is a power that's been passed down and becomes about it's a birthright. And what do you do with your birthright? And like, do you do something good with it? Do you do something bad with it? And that stuff I think is always so cool. And also just creates instant mythology. Like who doesn't want to do, I would love to have I'm literally pitching this on the fly. I never thought of this until right now. So you're welcome. Thank you. Like the Rogue Sun War, where you have 17 generations of Rogue Suns all fighting together. That would be awesome. And like, I might do that now. So like this is why I love doing interviews, because sometimes you just come up with a story idea in the middle of this. Cause I was like, I hadn't thought about that stuff. So that's the fun stuff that I like, is that sort of birthright stuff. So that's what I was going for with sort of just the idea that people like, cause with Radiant Black, he's a new hero. He's only he came in the first issue, but I like the idea that perhaps Rogue Sun was around in the 1990s, and that Marcus Bell, who was the original Rogue Sun, like maybe he hung out with the original Spawn and the original Savage Dragon, and that'd be kind of cool to play with that really thing. Cool. So who knows, man? Hopefully, if the book does well, we can keep doing that stuff.
Heck yeah, that sounds awesome. Is Supermassive, is that a one shot?
Yeah, it's a one shot, 45 pages or something like that. Yeah.
Awesome. Wow. Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. I can't wait for that.
And awesome. Excellent. So do you have any influences that you're taking for your story for Rogue Sun that's coming around, or are you just kind of going from your own, mythos that you're looking to tell?
I think I'm pulling from I have sort of the larger ideas involved. I have sort of like a deeper mythology that's not really revealed. The first 6 issues of Rogue Sun are more of a play out, like more of a murder mystery. Okay. It's the who killed Rogue Sun, and is it somebody close to you? Is it somebody you know? Is it somebody you don't? And so I liked that idea of sort of a kid. Like I like the idea of like, not only does he get new superpowers, but he's also got to worry like somebody might stab him in the back. And so that was a fun thing to play with. But when we get, hopefully, if the book keeps doing well, there's a lot of bigger ideas that are sort of already, that'll start to percolate through the first 6 issues that we'll really get into, where the powers come from, who the big bad is, what that's all going on, and sort of the ultimate. I have kind of an end idea in sight. Like I know the ending of the story. Like I feel like you don't really know your story where you can start unless you know what your ending is. I don't know when we'll get there or how we get there exactly. I know there's there's probably a lot of detours in the way, but I do know what that that last image, that last comic book thing. I think having that is always really helpful when you're trying to build any mythology. Influence wise, like I said, Matt Fraction's Iron Fist I thought was really, really great. I'm definitely pulling from the 90s superhero stuff. Like there's definitely like a Ghost Rider, Darkhawk kind of vibe going on there. I'm probably stealing Darkhawk directly. But no, I'm gonna get sued by Marvel now, watch. No, I think those are the stuff that I like. Invincible was obviously a huge impact on me because the way that story kept changing the status quo, kept pushing the boundaries of what people were used to in the superhero book. So like I feel like that's something that I'm trying to emulate a little bit. And then just like trying to be worthy of being an Image book that is in the same book as some of the ones that I love so much. So I want to make sure that that it would be awesome if all of the founders were like, yeah, Rogue Sun, we like that. That would be in the same way that Dylan is trying to get the approval of his father. I guarantee I'm trying to do the same thing for all of the Image founders.
Excellent. That's interesting to hear because I'd love to see any of the other writers at Image jump into this and really kind of help adapt your story into the whole universe of Image. Like you said, maybe have that war where they're all kind of helping a lot out with like Spawn and Al Simmons and all of their good stuff. So that's really interesting. I'm really looking forward to the book. The first 2 issues have been amazing. I really do hope that you continue on after the first 6 issues because I think there's a lot of potential in there. The villains that you've introduced in this story so far are extremely interesting, and I'm really looking to dive into more to those. I don't want to spoil anything as far as any of the characters, but guys at home, you guys really have to get on this. This is an opportunity to really get into a really cool superhero story from Image. And from Ryan especially, but you're not gonna be disappointed. It's really, really amazing. Nick, did you have any other questions for Ryan?
No, I just want to thank you for doing this interview. Thank you for continuing all of these characters that I grew up with. I've loved the Star Trek stories. I've loved the Power Ranger stories. They've just been a huge highlight in my comic book collecting and reading. And I'm really looking forward to Supermassive and Rogue Sun. So far I have absolutely loved what I've seen from Rogue Sun. So yeah, I'm just really looking forward to all of it.
Awesome, guys. I really appreciate letting me come on here. It's fun. It's always a little scary to talk about a new book and something. It's like and leaving sort of stepping away from the protection of Power Rangers is a little scary. So I really appreciate the time.
Oh, anytime. And you're always welcome to come back and chat with us anytime you want. Definitely hit us up. We'd love to have you on the show again.
Awesome.
Well, guys, thank you all for watching. Definitely hit up your LCS now. Get that book on your pulls list. Supermassive and Rogue Sun. You're not going to want to miss out on these. It's going to be amazing. Guys, thanks for watching. Ryan, thank you again. We'll catch you guys later.
Yeah.